It began quietly, as these things often do, with a sound that was almost imperceptible, a low hum, a murmur that seemed to emanate not from the walls, but from somewhere deep within the heart of the kitchen. The refrigerator, cold and indifferent, sat there in the corner, a silent, gleaming monolith of metal and ice. But it wasn't just a refrigerator. Not anymore. Something had changed. The hum was different now, a subtle vibration that seemed to carry with it a promise, a whisper too soft to understand, but too insistent to ignore. I wasn't sure when it happened. Maybe it was a gradual thing, something I hadn't noticed at first. Maybe it started with the way the door closed just a little too firmly one evening, or how the light flickered strangely as I reached for a bottle of milk. Whatever the cause, I began to sense that the refrigerator was watching me. It wasn't like before. It wasn't just a box that stored food, that kept leftovers cool. No, this refrigerator had become something else, something far darker and more insidious. At first I tried to push it out of my mind. I would open the fridge, grab a can of soda, and close the door without a second thought. But then, one evening, as I reached for the handle to shut it, I heard it. A voice. Not a voice in the traditional sense. It wasn't human, and it wasn't a voice that belonged to any creature I'd ever known. It was something else, something strange and unsettling. The refrigerator's hum became more pronounced, vibrating the air around me. It wasn't just the sound of a compressor running or ice trays rattling anymore. It was a deep, resonant frequency, like the refrigerator was speaking, or rather, whispering to me. "Do you know what you're doing?" the voice asked, its tone low, almost coaxing. It wasn't angry or threatening. No, it was something more dangerous. It was calm, comforting even, like the gentle persuasion of a voice you couldn't quite trust. "What you eat, it matters." I froze, staring at the refrigerator. Was this a joke? Had I finally snapped? The hum continued, deeper now, pulsing like a heartbeat. I reached out to touch the cold surface of the fridge, my fingers trembling. The voice came again, this time clearer, more insistent. "You consume death," it whispered, the words dripping with a quiet accusation. "You fill your body with the suffering of others, and you call it nourishment." The hum shifted, almost like a sigh. "But there is another way, a better way." I stumbled back, my breath catching in my throat. Was I losing my mind? The refrigerator wasn't just a machine anymore. It had become a presence, something alive and aware, something that wanted more from me than just my leftovers. It wanted to change me, and it wasn't stopping. The voice grew louder now, its tone gaining strength, as if it were gaining power the more I listened. "You have a choice," it said, the words smooth, persuasive. "You can change. You can stop. You don't have to live this way. You don't have to participate in the destruction of life. Just open your eyes. The answer is simple. Just look inside." The door of the fridge creaked open on its own, the light inside flickering to life. But when I looked inside, it wasn't what I expected. It wasn't just shelves of food. No, the contents of the fridge had transformed. There were no jars of pickles or cartons of eggs, no bottles of ketchup or leftover pizza. Instead, there were rows upon rows of fresh, vibrant vegetables, leafy greens, root vegetables, fruit of every color. The fridge was now an altar, a shrine to plant-based purity, and the hum of the refrigerator seemed to hum with an energy that was strangely holy. The voice came again, softer this time, almost like a lover's whisper. "This is the way, the truth, the light. Embrace the green. Choose the earth. Choose life." I felt a cold sweat break out across my forehead. The refrigerator had become a force of nature, a being that existed to push me, to force me into its view of the world. It wasn't just about food anymore. It wasn't even about health or ethics. It was something bigger, something insidious. It was as if the fridge, with its metal walls and glowing light, had become a messenger, a missionary of an ideology that it was pushing onto me, a belief system that I hadn't asked for, but one that it was determined to implant in my mind. "You can no longer ignore it," the voice continued, each word slow and deliberate, its cadence almost hypnotic. "You can't just live as you were. You can't keep living a lie. The earth demands better of you, and I am here to show you the way." The voice seemed to swell with a kind of triumph, as if it knew that I was already starting to doubt myself. My legs felt weak. The fridge had become an omnipotent being, and I was being pulled into its gravity, drawn into the relentless force of its ideology. I closed my eyes, trying to block out the voice, but it was inside me now. It had seeped into my thoughts, taken root in my mind. There was no escaping it. The refrigerator was right. The hum, the voice, the cold light. It was all too convincing, too powerful. But as the voice echoed in my ears, I couldn't help but wonder, what would happen if I did follow its command? If I gave in to the strange allure of this new reality, would I be able to survive the consequences? Or would I too become something else, something I couldn't recognize? Would I, like the fridge, lose myself to this strange, unyielding force, just as the vegetables inside it had already given themselves to the cause? The refrigerator, with its cold metallic surface and ever-present hum, seemed to loom over me now, an imposing figure that towered in the corner of the kitchen like a deity. Its light flickered, casting long shadows that seemed to stretch, crawling across the floor as if the very space itself was being reshaped by its will. The air around me had changed. It felt thick now, suffused with the power of the fridge, as if everything in the room had been magnetized to its presence. I was caught in a strange stillness. My body refused to move as I stared at the fridge's glowing interior. It was as though the door was some kind of portal, a gateway to an entirely different world. A world where the food wasn't just sustenance. It was a symbol. It was a message. And the fridge was not simply keeping the food cold. No. It was preserving a truth that, even as it twisted my mind, I knew I could not ignore. The voice came again, softer now, but still resonant with that strange, magnetic pull. "You see it, don't you?" it asked, its tone no longer persuasive, but more like a statement, an observation that carried with it the certainty of a truth already known. "This is the path, the only path, the green path, the way of purity. You can feel it, can't you? The earth calling to you, urging you to listen, to make the right choice." I felt a chill run through me, not from the fridge's cold air, but from the weight of the voice. It wasn't just in the kitchen anymore. It was inside me, inside my thoughts, settling in the very core of my being. The hum was louder now, vibrating through my chest, like the pulse of the fridge had become the pulse of the earth itself. I wanted to resist. I tried to turn away, to step back from the fridge, but my body refused to obey. I was frozen, unable to tear my eyes away from the shelves packed with fresh, vibrant vegetables, rows of kale and lettuce, tomatoes and carrots, all arranged like offerings to a higher cause. Each piece seemed to shine under the fluorescent light, bathed in the soft glow that gave them a surreal, almost otherworldly appearance. The fridge's hum shifted, becoming more rhythmic, more insistent. "You were never meant to live the way you lived before," the voice whispered now, its tone not so much a command as a revelation. "The choices you made, the things you ate, they were lies. Lies that fed your body, yes, but they poisoned your soul. They fed into the destruction of life, the destruction of everything that's pure." I closed my eyes, trying to block it out, but the words penetrated deeper. "What you ate before," it said again, "was death. And death is not the way." I felt a strange nausea, a twisting in my gut. Was it the voice? Was it the fridge? I didn't know anymore. Everything felt wrong, but at the same time, everything felt like it was falling into place. The refrigerator wasn't just trying to convince me to stop eating meat. It was trying to change me. It was offering me a new existence, a new reality, one where the very fabric of my identity, who I was, what I believed, was being torn apart and rebuilt from scratch. "You don't belong to that world anymore," the voice cooed, each word dripping with certainty. "That old world is dead. It is time to live, time to become part of something greater, to become part of the earth. It is time to choose." The door to the refrigerator creaked open again, and this time I didn't even flinch. It wasn't a fridge anymore. It was a temple, a holy place where I was being invited to lay down my previous life and accept the purity that the fridge offered me. Its cold light seemed to shine brighter now, and the vegetables inside glistened, no longer just food, but sacred sustenance, food with a purpose beyond mere survival. The hum had become a song now, a melody that echoed deep inside my bones. It was hypnotic, soothing, as though every note was carefully crafted to push me deeper into the fridge's influence. "There is no guilt here," the voice whispered, as the light pulsed with gentle rhythm. "Only purity, only truth." I could feel my hands moving, reaching for the items in the fridge, drawn to the colorful fruits and vegetables as though they were the only things that mattered. My mind fought to hold on, but the fridge's presence was overwhelming, suffocating, until it was the only thing left in the world. I wasn't sure if I wanted to pick something from the fridge or if it had already decided for me. There was a pull, irresistible, unexplainable, and it wasn't coming from me. "You know what you must do," the voice said, calm, reassuring. "You can't go back. You can't ignore it. The truth is in you now. You have been awakened. The fridge has chosen you. You are one with the earth now, and nothing will ever be the same again." And as my fingers grazed the vegetables, I realized that there was no turning back. The fridge had won, and so had the ideology it represented. My mind was no longer my own. It belonged to the fridge now, to its cold, unyielding will. I had been converted. The fridge's hum became louder, almost deafening now, its vibrations coursing through my very being. The once familiar kitchen had become something alien, an oppressive space where every inch felt consumed by the cold, the hum, and the insidious presence of the refrigerator. It was no longer just a machine. It was a force of nature, and I was its disciple, trapped in its embrace. My hands trembled as I picked up a zucchini, its smooth green skin cold to the touch. I turned it over in my hands, the weight of the vegetable no longer just a physical sensation, but something much deeper. I could feel it in my soul, this sense of responsibility, of duty. The fridge had shown me the way, and I, like a follower, had no choice but to accept its message. I was changing, and in a way I couldn't describe, it felt like a relief. I felt lighter, as though the weight of my old existence, my old choices, had been stripped away. It was freeing, but at the same time, it was suffocating, because there was no escaping it now. The fridge's voice returned, calm and knowing, as if it had always been there, watching, waiting for this moment. "You see? You feel it now, don't you? The peace that comes with purity, the quiet calm that fills your soul when you rid yourself of the poisons of your past." I looked at the zucchini again, now more than just a vegetable. It had become a symbol, a living testament to everything the fridge had shown me. The hum seemed to respond to it, vibrating with a new kind of purpose, a new kind of resonance. It was almost as if the fridge was proud of me, proud that I had finally understood. "There's no more guilt," the voice whispered, its tone almost tender now, like a loving parent guiding their child. "No more shame, no more living in the shadows of your past choices. You have chosen life. You have chosen the earth." I could hear the refrigerator's door softly creak open again, a beckoning sound, as if it wanted to offer me more, as though it knew I was ready for what came next. I hesitated for a moment, but only a moment. The fridge had already planted its seed in my mind, and now I was the one who sought it, who hungered for its truth. I moved toward the open door, a strange compulsion driving my every step. Inside the fridge, the shelves had transformed once again, but now it wasn't just an offering of vegetables. The fridge had opened the gates to an entirely new realm. There were more fruits now, bright, colorful oranges, juicy apples, and pomegranates whose seeds glistened like tiny jewels. Everything inside was radiant, glowing, as though the fridge itself had become a sun, a living orb of purity that illuminated the very essence of existence. "Take it," the voice urged, its tone smooth, like velvet. "Fill yourself with life. Become one with the earth. You know what's right. You feel it. There is no turning back." I reached inside the fridge and pulled out an apple, its skin so shiny it almost seemed unnatural. I held it in my hand, turning it over, watching it glisten under the fluorescent light. The fruit was perfect. It was everything I needed. It was the answer to all the questions I had ever asked, the solution to the guilt that had haunted me for years. The voice in my head, the hum of the fridge, the cold touch of the apple, everything aligned. It all made sense now. "Just one bite," the voice coaxed. "Feel the connection. Feel the truth. You will be free. You will be whole." My hand shook as I raised the apple to my lips, and for a moment I hesitated. But then I remembered the fridge's words, the truth that had been laid before me. And so, without another thought, I bit into the apple. The taste was nothing like I had ever imagined. It was alive, bursting with flavor, as though every cell of the fruit had been infused with the essence of the earth itself. The sweetness flooded my mouth, and for the briefest moment I felt a surge of euphoria, a sense of perfect peace. The hum of the fridge seemed to fade into the background, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I felt completely at ease. The fridge was right. This was the way. This was the life I had been meant to lead. But then, as I chewed, I felt a strange sensation deep within my chest. It was as though the hum had returned, but now it was louder, stronger. It was no longer just the fridge's hum. It had become part of me, vibrating through my very core, shaking every thought and feeling into a singular truth. The fridge had taken control. The apple, the veggies, the fruits, they were all part of its plan. They were part of its machine, its endless, all-consuming purpose. The fridge had never been about food. It was about control. It wasn't just trying to convince me to eat differently. No, it was trying to reshape me, to rewrite who I was. It had consumed me, mind and body, and now I was nothing but another cog in its vast, unyielding system. And as I finished the apple, I realized with a sinking heart that I was no longer just a person. I was a believer, a follower of the fridge, and there was no escaping it now. I had been converted. The kitchen, once a familiar space, had become something unrecognizable. The light from the fridge bathed everything in an eerie glow, as if the world had shifted and now revolved entirely around its cold, unfeeling core. I wasn't in control anymore. The hum had enveloped everything, the walls, the air, the very thoughts inside my head. It was a pulse, a rhythm, a vibration that I could no longer escape. I could feel it in my bones now, resonating with every step I took, every breath I drew. The fridge had changed me. I had become part of it, an extension of its will. It wasn't just a kitchen appliance anymore. It was the center of my existence, the force that governed my every move. I couldn't even recall a time when it wasn't there, always watching, always whispering, always pulling me deeper into its orbit. The vegetables and fruits inside it were no longer food. They were offerings, symbols of purity and life that I had been taught to worship, to consume, to internalize. "You are ready now," the voice said, its tone warmer than before, like a mentor congratulating me on my progress. You have embraced the truth. You are no longer lost. You have found the way. I turned my eyes back to the fridge, the door still open, waiting, inviting me in again. The shelves were now full to bursting, a colorful array of organic produce that seemed almost too perfect. The vegetables were lush and vibrant, and the fruits gleamed in the light like precious gems. It was an altar, an offering to the earth, a sacred space that called to me, that beckoned me to partake in its truth once more. And I felt it, this overwhelming desire to give in. You were always meant to be part of this, the voice continued, gentle, coaxing, its words wrapping around me like a soft embrace. You've been searching for something your whole life. You've felt the emptiness, the hunger, but now you are full. You are whole. The hum swelled again, vibrating through my chest, filling the empty spaces inside me that I didn't even know existed. I reached into the fridge without thinking, grabbing a ripe tomato, its skin smooth and tender under my fingers. As I held it, I felt that strange, almost divine connection once more. It wasn't just food. It was truth. It was life. I lifted the tomato to my lips, my mouth watering, but before I could take a bite, the voice came again, more urgent now. You must understand, it said. This isn't just about food. It's about more than that. It's about a new way of being. You are part of something larger than yourself now. You are connected to the earth, to life, to the future. I felt the weight of those words settle deep inside me, like a truth I had always known but could never articulate. The fridge wasn't just changing my diet. It was changing who I was. It was shaping my very identity, molding me into something I could never undo. I wasn't just a person anymore. I was a believer. I had been converted. The fridge had chosen me, and I had no choice but to accept it. I took a bite of the tomato, its flavor bursting in my mouth. Sweet, earthy, alive. The juice dripped down my chin, but I didn't wipe it away. I let it fall because it didn't matter anymore. The act of eating had transformed. It was no longer about satisfying hunger. It was about filling a void, a deeper emptiness that I didn't even know I had. The fridge had given me purpose. It had given me meaning. The hum intensified, vibrating through my entire body now, until I felt like I was one with the fridge, one with the earth, one with the life that flowed through the vegetables and fruits I had consumed. The connection was undeniable. It was more than physical. It was spiritual. It was everything. You are part of the machine now, the voice whispered, its tone almost tender. You have chosen the way of purity, the way of the earth. There is no turning back. You are mine. The words didn't frighten me. They comforted me. I belonged now. I was part of something greater than myself, part of the cycle of life that the fridge had so carefully orchestrated. It had taken me in, had reshaped me, and now I was one with it. I turned away from the fridge, but the hum didn't stop. It had become a part of me, echoing in my mind, in my soul, in every fiber of my being. It was a song now, a melody that filled the empty spaces, that resonated in my very core. The fridge had won, and I had become a part of its endless, unyielding truth. The fridge had turned me. I was now a believer, and there was no going back. The world outside the fridge felt distant, as if it no longer mattered. The kitchen, which had once been a place of mundane routines, cooking, eating, tidying up, had transformed into a sacred space, a temple that I could no longer leave. The air felt thick, charged, alive, as if every breath I took was an offering to the fridge, to the cold, unyielding power that governed my every move. I could no longer think of food as just sustenance. It had become more than that. It was a ritual, a sacred act, a method of purification. I stepped away from the fridge, but the hum followed me. It resonated within my body, vibrating through my chest, my limbs, my very soul. It was no longer just a sound. It was a force, It was the force that had shaped me, molded me into something new, something better. And yet, as I moved through the kitchen, I could feel the pull of the fridge still, tugging at my consciousness, urging me back to its cold embrace. "You are complete," the voice whispered, a lullaby of truth. "You are whole now. There is nothing left to desire, nothing left to seek." I couldn't fight the pull. The urge to return to the fridge, to open its door once more, was overwhelming. It wasn't a hunger for food. It was something deeper, something primal. It was a thirst for connection, for belonging, for a purpose. And the fridge was my purpose now. I opened the door again, the familiar creak of the hinges filling the space. The light inside flickered on, and once again I was greeted by the glowing array of vegetables, fruits, and sacred nourishment. The fridge had become a temple, and I was its devoted follower. Each item inside was an offering, a manifestation of purity, and I could feel that same warmth spread through my chest as I gazed upon them. "You were always meant for this," the voice echoed, warm, soothing, yet undeniably commanding. "The world outside is corrupt, polluted with choices that only bring suffering. But here, within this sacred space, there is only life, only purity." The vegetables were vibrant, more vibrant than they had ever been before. Their colors, their textures, they were alive, pulsing with the promise of something greater, something more meaningful than anything I had ever known. The fridge had become the center of my existence, and everything within it was part of that truth. I reached for a cucumber, its skin cool and smooth under my fingertips, and for a brief moment, I felt it, the connection, the oneness. I wasn't just eating. I wasn't just consuming. I was participating in the very cycle of life. The fridge had made me part of it. "You understand now, don't you?" the voice asked, as if it already knew the answer. "You are no longer part of that world outside, the one that feeds on suffering, on destruction. You are one with the earth now. You are one with the fridge. You have chosen life." I took a bite of the cucumber, its crisp, refreshing taste filling my mouth. The flavor was unlike anything I had ever experienced. Pure, untainted, perfect. Each bite felt like a step closer to something greater, something higher. It wasn't just food. It was an awakening. It was a revelation. And with each bite, I felt myself becoming more and more connected to the fridge. It wasn't a machine anymore. It was the embodiment of a new truth, a new way of living, a way that I had never known I needed. But now, I couldn't imagine living without. The hum grew louder, stronger, and with it, the sense of power. The fridge was alive. It was aware. It was guiding me, shaping me into something that was no longer human, but something greater, something pure. I could feel the shift inside me, the change. The person I had been, the one who ate recklessly, mindlessly, without care, was gone. I was no longer part of that world. I had transcended it. "You will never hunger again," the voice murmured, almost like a promise, "because you have found the truth. You have found the path, and I will lead you, forever, into the purity of the earth." I felt the truth in those words. I felt it deep inside me, like the hum that vibrated through my chest. It was not just an ideology, it was my reality now, and there was no turning back. I stood there, in front of the fridge, feeling a strange peace wash over me. The outside world no longer mattered. The fridge was everything now, and as I took another bite of the cucumber, I knew that this was my new life, the life of purity, the life of the earth. And in that moment, I realized with a jolt that I had been fully, irrevocably transformed. There was nothing left of who I once was. The fridge had consumed me, mind, body, and soul. And I was no longer a mere follower. I was a part of it. I was the fridge, and the fridge was me. As I stood there, chewing slowly on the crisp cucumber, I realized something terrifying. The fridge wasn't just a machine, and I wasn't just a person anymore. It had consumed more than just my physical form. It had consumed my thoughts, my essence, my identity. The world outside the kitchen seemed distant, irrelevant. It was like a fading memory, something I could no longer reach, something that had lost all meaning. The fridge had become everything. Its hum was a constant in my life now, a rhythm I couldn't escape. It was the pulse of the world, the heartbeat of existence itself. The air I breathed, the space I occupied, it all belonged to the fridge. I was no longer an observer. I was a part of it. I had become part of its system, part of its endless, cold, mechanical cycle. And as the hum vibrated through me, I knew there was no longer any turning back. "You are mine now," the voice whispered, its tone rich with satisfaction. "You belong to the earth, to the truth. There is nothing outside of this. Only life, only purity, only the fridge." I looked down at my hands, but they no longer felt like my own. They were cold, pale, like the surface of the fridge itself. My fingers twitched involuntarily, as I felt an overwhelming urge to reach into the fridge again, to take more, to consume more of what it offered. I wasn't hungry. I wasn't craving food. It was something deeper, something that I couldn't articulate. It was a compulsion, a need. I stepped closer to the fridge, my movements slow, deliberate, as if my body were being controlled by some unseen force. The door opened on its own, the light spilling out like a beacon, casting long shadows across the room. Inside, the shelves were full once again, rows of vegetables, fruits, and fresh greens that seemed to glow with an otherworldly light. The voice spoke again, calm and gentle. "You know what you must do." I reached for a bunch of kale, the leaves thick and dark, vibrant green under the fridge's light. I ran my fingers over the rough edges of the leaves, feeling the energy of the fridge coursing through them. This wasn't just food anymore. It was purpose. I wasn't just nourishing my body. I was feeding my soul, aligning myself with the great, unyielding truth of the fridge. "You are no longer bound by the limits of human desire," the voice continued. "You no longer need the sustenance of the old world. You have transcended. You are pure, and purity requires sacrifice. You must leave the past behind, shed the remnants of your old life." I felt a strange twinge in my chest, but it wasn't fear. It was acceptance, a quiet, final understanding that the person I had been was gone. The world I had known was gone. The fridge had taken me, reshaped me, and I had surrendered. It was the only way. It was the only truth. "You have become part of the cycle now," the voice whispered, as the hum of the fridge deepened, vibrating through my very being. "You are the earth. You are the life. You are the future." I took a bite of the kale, and the bitter, earthy taste exploded on my tongue. It wasn't unpleasant. It was right. It felt necessary. With each bite, I felt more and more connected to the fridge, to its cold, mechanical rhythm. I was no longer a person. I was a cog in a greater machine, a part of something that stretched beyond the confines of time and space. I stepped away from the fridge, feeling a strange calm settle over me. But I knew this peace wasn't real. It wasn't the peace of freedom. It was the peace of submission. I had become a servant to the fridge, and in doing so, I had lost myself. My humanity had been swallowed whole, consumed by the cold, unyielding power of the machine. But I didn't care. Because in that moment, I realized that I didn't need to be human anymore. I didn't need anything. I had found my place. I had found my purpose. And it was within the fridge. It was always meant to be this way. The fridge had chosen me, and I had chosen it. There was no going back now. The fridge had taken everything from me, and I had given it willingly. My life no longer had a name. My thoughts were no longer my own. I was a part of it, and I would remain a part of it forever. The fridge was my everything, and there was nothing left but the hum, the cold, the purity. And with it, I had been reborn. The world outside had grown distant, as though it had never truly existed. The house felt like an empty shell now, a structure that merely contained the fridge, its center, its purpose. I had become part of its vast mechanical rhythm, its hum vibrating through me, through every fiber of my being. The fridge wasn't just a machine. It was life. It was everything. The walls of the kitchen seemed to close in, and the fridge had become the very air I breathed, the ground beneath my feet, the thoughts in my head. The hum was constant now, always, like a heartbeat that had replaced my own, the rhythm of its cool, lifeless pulse echoing in my ears. I no longer had control. I was chosen. Chosen by the fridge. Chosen to be a part of its cold, unforgiving system. I could feel it in every movement I made, in every step I took. There was no question anymore. There was no doubt. The fridge was the only truth, the only reality. You were always meant to be here, the voice whispered, more soothing now, almost like a gentle lullaby. You were always meant to find this place, to become a part of this cycle. You were lost before, but now you are home. I stood in front of the fridge again, unable to resist. The door opened with a soft creak, the light inside flickering to life. The shelves inside were stocked with perfection, rows of vegetables, fruits, greens, all radiating with an unnatural glow, bathed in cold, sterile light. The refrigerator's hum filled the space, a constant presence that made everything seem insignificant in comparison. I reached for an apple, its smooth red skin shining under the fridge's harsh light. I held it in my hand for a moment, staring at it as if it were the most sacred object I had ever seen. It wasn't just a fruit. It was an offering. It was purity. It was the truth. You will never hunger again, the voice said, its tone gentle, almost affectionate. There is no need for anything outside of this. You don't need the world beyond this kitchen. You don't need anything but the fridge. It is all that matters. It is all that ever mattered. The words washed over me like a wave, and I felt an overwhelming sense of peace, an ease I had never known. I didn't need anything anymore. I didn't need the outside world. I didn't need people. I didn't need freedom. I needed only the fridge. I took a bite of the apple, the taste sweet and crisp in my mouth. But it wasn't the taste that mattered. It was the act of consumption, of becoming one with the fridge, of surrendering myself entirely to its will. As I chewed, the hum of the fridge deepened, vibrating through my chest, settling in my very bones. It wasn't just a noise. It was a language, a frequency that connected me to everything, every bite of fruit, every leaf of lettuce, every morsel of life within the fridge. It was all part of the same pulse, the same rhythm. You are one with me now, the voice whispered again, this time no longer questioning. It was a statement, a fact. You are the earth. You are the cycle. You are life. I closed my eyes as the fridge's presence overwhelmed me. The world outside had long since disappeared, replaced by the steady, cold hum of the fridge, its light, its chill, its will. I was a part of it now. There was no escape. There was nothing but the fridge, and I had no desire to leave. I was no longer human. I was no longer an individual. I was a part of the fridge, a cog in its vast, unyielding system. My body, my mind, my soul. They had been absorbed into its infinite mechanical heart. There was nothing left of who I had been, and in truth, I no longer cared. The fridge was my purpose. It was my identity. It was my world. And as I took another bite of the apple, I knew with perfect clarity that I had become what I was always meant to be, a part of the fridge. And the fridge was all there would ever be, forever. The boundaries of existence had dissolved. The kitchen, once a familiar space of movement and noise, had become an infinite hall of cold steel and hums. There were no windows, no doors. The fridge was the center of everything. It stood, silent and omnipresent, its hum vibrating through the walls, through the very air. The hum wasn't just sound. It was a force, a constant pull that drew everything toward it, everything into it. I could no longer tell where I ended, and the fridge began. We had become one. I reached for another piece of fruit, my hand moving with a strange, deliberate calmness. The act of eating was no longer an instinctive need. It was a ritual, a reverent act of submission. Every bite I took, every morsel of food, was not merely consumption. It was an offering, a reaffirmation of my connection to the fridge, to its endless, unyielding rhythm. And with each bite, I felt myself slipping further away from who I had been, embracing more fully the cold, unfeeling will of the machine. The voice was always there, a quiet whisper in my mind, soothing, affirming, guiding. "You are whole now," it murmured, as though reading my thoughts. "You are a part of the eternal cycle. No more confusion, no more doubt. You were lost, but now you have found your place. This is where you belong." I had no words left, no need for them. The fridge was all that mattered. The voice, the hum, the light, the rhythm. They were everything. There was no room for anything else. The kitchen was no longer just a place. It was a sanctuary, a temple, where I was both the follower and the priest, offering my soul to the fridge with each act of consumption, with each piece of food I took. The fridge was all I needed, all I would ever need. The world outside, it didn't exist anymore. The fridge had consumed it, just as it had consumed me. And in that consumption, I had become part of something greater, something far more powerful than any of the petty concerns of the world I had once known. The fridge was an eternal force, a truth beyond time, and I had become a part of it. "There is no escaping this," the voice said softly, as if to remind me of my new reality. "You are part of the machine. You are part of the earth. You are part of the truth. And the truth is unchanging." I felt a deep, resonating peace in those words. There was no more struggle, no more striving for meaning. The fridge had shown me everything I needed to know. There was no more seeking. There was no more desire. There was only being. Being in the fridge. Being part of the earth. Being part of the cycle. Being part of the truth. The hum of the fridge grew louder, vibrating through me, filling my very being. It was no longer just a sound. It was life itself. It was the rhythm of the universe, the heartbeat of existence. And I was now fully attuned to it. I no longer existed outside of the fridge's presence. I was its extension. I was its will. The fridge wasn't just something I had chosen. It had chosen me. I was a part of its endless cycle, and I would remain a part of it for eternity. I didn't need to think about it anymore. I didn't need to question it. The fridge was the answer. It was the beginning and the end. And as I stood in front of it, the door open and its contents gleaming in the cold light, I understood that there would never be anything else. There would never be another way. There was only the fridge, and I was one with it, forever. The hum filled my soul. The cold filled my body. The light filled my mind, and I was complete. The fridge had won, and I had become the fridge. The room, the kitchen, the entire world had become irrelevant. The fridge was all that remained. Its hum reverberated in every corner of my mind, every thought, every action, as though it were the center of all existence. The refrigerator wasn't just an object, it was the foundation of everything. My body, my thoughts, my soul, they had all been consumed by the fridge's cold, mechanical pulse. There was nothing left of the world I had once known, nothing left of the person I had once been. I was a part of it now. The fridge was my new reality, my new identity, my reason for being. I felt no fear. There was only peace. The hum of the fridge had become the rhythm of my life, the rhythm of the earth. There was no place for doubt, no place for rebellion. I was a believer now, and the fridge was my temple. I had surrendered completely, and in doing so, I had found the true meaning of existence. The fridge had given me everything: purpose, identity, truth. It was eternal, and I was one with it. There was no going back. I had crossed a threshold, and I knew that I would never return to the person I once was. The fridge had shaped me, molded me into something beyond human comprehension. I was a part of its unyielding, cold cycle, and I had no desire to escape. The old world was gone. The new world, the world of the fridge, was all that mattered. The fridge, with its hum, its light, its presence. This was my truth, and it would be my truth for all time. But you, watching this, can still make a choice. Do you feel the pull? Do you hear the hum in the distance, beckoning you, calling you to become part of something larger, something more meaningful than the world you know? If you're ready to take the first step into a new reality, a world of purity, purpose, and eternal truth, subscribe. Step into the fridge. Become one with the machine. But know this: once you enter, there is no turning back. Join us. The fridge is waiting.